أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد بسم الله الله أكبر الله أكبر جل جلاله ربي الله أكبر الله أكبر جل جلاله ربي أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أشهد أن عليا ولي الله عليه الصلاة والسلام أشهد أن عليا حجة الله عليه الصلاة والسلام حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير الأمل حي على خير العمل الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم اجعل قلبي بارا وعيشي كارا وعملي سارا ورزقي دارا وأولادي برارا واجعلني عند قبر نبيك مستقرا وقرارا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم صل على محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الأطيبين الأطهرين الهداة المهديين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today, inshallah, we will look at one of the categories of people in society that it is recommended in Islam for us to honor and to look out for, and that is the category of mujahideen, those who are strugglers in the way of Allah. Now, the term mujahid has been done an injustice by two groups of people, by Muslims and by non-Muslims. By non-Muslims because they often take the word mujahid almost as a synonym for somebody who doesn't think and who doesn't have any mercy and is just a fighter. For many people in the non-Muslim world, the word mujahid, na'udhu billah, may be synonymous with a terrorist, with somebody who is an extremist, with somebody who solves every problem through fighting and killing and violence. And that is an injustice. Some of that is deliberate, but some of that is because of the injustice that we as Muslims have done to the word mujahid and the word jihad, where we have used the word jihad and we think of jihad as being something of a military or a material nature. Jihad is not about military fights, and jihad is not even about a material action, it is a spiritual journey. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا, those who do jihad in our way. Now, what is the outcome of jihad? If a person wants to know what is the meaning of jihad in Islam and what is the meaning of jihad in the Quran, then we can look at what Allah promises the people who do jihad. That tells us the essence of jihad. وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا, those who do jihad, those who are mujahid. What is it that Allah is going to give them? Does Allah say, I will give them victory? Now, if it's a military fight, you want to defeat your enemy. If your enemy is evil, then you want to defeat that evil or that invader and you want to win. But Allah does not promise those people who do jihad victory. He promises them guidance. لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. We will provide them hidayah. We will provide them guidance. So in the Quran and in Islam and in the teachings and practice of Ahlul Bayt, jihad is not about a material struggle. It is not about a war. It is not about even the defense of Islam. But rather it is about a journey to Allah. It is a spiritual journey. It is a journey of struggle and sacrifice in order to serve the cause of Allah. And one of the ways that we serve the cause of Allah when it is needed is that we may stand in the battlefield and defend our religion, defend our land, defend our people, defend our values, defend our rights. Sometimes that is needed, but that is never the goal. And even when you stand in the battlefield, the goal is not the battle, or the victory, or the defeat, or the revenge. But the goal is to stand up for what is true and what is right and for Allah. So enemies of Islam and non-Muslims, they have done an injustice to the word jihad and the word mujahid by assuming that it is a battle. And similarly, many Muslims have done an injustice to that word and to that concept by treating it as if it is a matter of fighting or defeating an enemy, when in reality, that is a part of jihad, but a very small part. And it is a result of the goal of serving and sacrificing for the sake of Allah. And so in reality, for a mujahid, our entire life is jihad, if it is for the sake of Allah. And sometimes the more difficult jihad is the one when there is no explicit enemy. Have you ever heard it said, sometimes seriously or sometimes in joking, that the only thing that can unite Muslims is when they have an enemy that is attacking them, that is trying to destroy them, and then they put aside their own difference. Sometimes they don't put aside their differences even when they are under attack. But generally speaking, if we are not under attack, if we are not in a difficult situation, then it's human nature that we separate ourselves into our own small groups, nations, and friends, and different groups. But then when there is something that we are afraid of, then we might put aside those small differences temporarily and work to defend ourselves against the enemy. When there is an enemy threatening you, then the need for jihad, the need for unity, the need for sacrifice becomes more obvious. But when the enemy is not there in front of you, they may still be scheming and planning against you, but it's far away. It's not in front of you. When the temptation of shaitan is not blatant, but it is a very clever and a very sly whispering, then it's much harder for us to even realize we are under attack. So that jihad is sometimes even more difficult than the explicit jihad. Right now, if shaitan comes to any one of us and says that here is a glass of wine, drink it, it'll be very easy for me to say no. I am a Muslim, this is haram, this is prohibited by Allah, I'm not going to do it. But if shaitan comes to me and says that this person who you don't like anyway, they're not a very good Muslim, so talk bad about them, not because you want to gossip, but because they're not a good Muslim and you want to make it clear to others that they're a bad Muslim. Now shaitan, he's still attacking me. Instead of telling me to drink wine, as the Quran says, he's telling me to eat the flesh of my fellow Muslim, because gossip is also eating something haram. But because it is not clear, it's not as blatant and obvious in front of me, even those Muslims who would never think of drinking wine will sometimes commit gossip. Because they don't believe in Allah? No. Because they are evil? No. But because it's not as obvious that this is an attack from shaitan. And maybe this is one of the reasons that our beloved Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu he said, when people came back from a battlefield, marhaba biqawmin qadaw al-jihad al-asghar wa baqiya alayhim al-jihad al-akbar. Alaykum as-salam. Welcome to a people who have done the small jihad, and there remains for them to do the big jihad. Now, imagine these people have come from a battle. Travel is difficult. You don't have a bed. Often you don't have enough food or drink for your needs. You don't have a place to change your clothes, to take a shower, so you are tired. You might be hungry. You might be wounded. You might be in difficulty. You are separated from your family with no news. And in that difficult time, with all of those hardships, you come back to Medina and the Prophet says, all right, this was the easy task, now there's a more difficult task for you. The first thing that's going to come into your mind is, what is our responsibility now? What is in store for us now? And then very directly and very beautifully the Prophet says, jihad, in reality, that jihad which is greater, that al-jihad al-akbar is the struggle against the temptations of your own soul. It's not a battlefield on the outside, but it is a spiritual battlefield. So this is the reality of jihad. And therefore, Islam has emphasized that we should all be mujahid. When the time calls for one type of sacrifice, we should be ready for that type of sacrifice. If Islam is under attack, then we should make sure that all of us are preparing and readying ourselves to be able to defend Islam in the way that it is being attacked. If there is a physical attack, then we should all be ready with martial training and self-defense training so that we can stand up for our rights and our dignity. If it is an intellectual attack, then all of us should be armed with the weapons of intellect and reasoning and know how to defend our religion and our principles. If we are being attacked intellectually and I'm only preparing with target practice and with weapons training, then I'm not going to be able to defend Islam. If the attack is coming from the air and my defenses are on the land, I'm not going to be able to defend. So whatever type of attack we have, that is the type of defense that we need to have, and that is what the mujahid will focus on. If our attack is cultural, and today the biggest attack that Islam faces is not military, although there are military attacks, and it is not intellectual, although there are intellectual attacks. The biggest attack that we face is a cultural attack. So if I'm not ready as a mujahid to stand up and to defend and to be proud of the cultural values that I get from Islam, then I will not be able to preserve my identity and preserve my religion. I am not a mujahid if I'm thinking of defending somewhere that is safe, and the border that is unsafe, I'm not careful about it, I'm not protecting it. So a mujahid defends Islam. A mujahid is ready to volunteer and to sacrifice for Islam in whichever area Islam is in need of sacrifice and defense. And if that is a battle on the battlefield, we should be ready for that. If that is a battle with our money, if that is a battle with our time, if that is a battle with our intellect, with our culture, then we should be ready to fight that battle. There are some times, like also today, when we as Muslims don't have institutions. We don't have masajid, we don't have schools, we don't have cemeteries, we don't have places to take care of our elderly. We don't have all of these resources that a community needs in this society. And so one of the biggest jihads might be for me to say that I'm going to try to save up in order to give a substantial contribution to establish these basic needs for our community. That is a form of jihad if the community is in need to establish those institutions. So this is the message that we should read in the Quran and in the ahadith whenever we talk about or we hear about jihad. It is not just about fighting, but rather it is readiness to sacrifice, readiness to be present and to offer whatever we are able to offer for the sake of Allah. And that is why the goal is guidance. The result is guidance, not victory. That is why on the eve of Ashura, on the 9th of Muharram, Imam Hussein said, "Go, O Abbas, and ask for one day so we can do ibadah." Because the battle of Karbala was secondary to the ibadah that Imam Hussein and his followers, companions, and family, they performed. That was the goal. And the glory of their sacrifice was not only on the battlefield, but it was in their devotion and their dedication to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So let's remember this principle about what jihad is and why jihad is important, and let's look at a few ahadith. The first hadith is from Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. The Imam says that jihad is one of the names of a gate of heaven. Inna al-jihad babun min abwab al-jannah. One of the gates of heaven is called jihad. فَتَحَهُ اللَّهُ لِخَاصَّةِ أَوْلِيَائِهِ. And that gate Allah will open for His very special awliya and His very special friends and lovers, those who are mujahid and sacrifice for the sake of Allah. That gate will be for them. So the word jihad should never be cheapened. It should never be put down in our culture and in our society. Whatever people may think of it, non-Muslims or Muslims, if they abuse the word, jihad is a very sacred word. Inshallah, may Allah allow all of us to enter into paradise through the gate of jihad and be among the mujahideen as those nearest and dearest to our Prophet, and our Prophet himself were among the mujahideen. The Quran says in Surah An-Nisa, لا يستوي القاعدون من المؤمنين غير أولي الضرر والمجاهدون في سبيل الله. Those who sit back and are believers are not like those who do jihad, except if those who sit back, they are أولي الضرر, meaning if they are unable to go and struggle, then they have an excuse. If Allah has not given them the health or the strength or the ability, then Allah is the one who is responsible, and it is not their shortcoming. But if we are able to stand up, we have strength, we have ability, and then we decide to take it easy, then we can never be equal to those who do jihad بِأَمْوَالِهِمْ وَأَنفُسِهِمْ. Jihad can be through funding, and jihad can be through struggling in person. Both of them are needed and both of them are important. فَضَّلَ اللَّهُ الْمُجَاهِدِينَ بِأَمْوَالِهِمْ وَأَنفُسِهِمْ عَلَى الْقَاعِدِينَ دَرَجَةً. Those who do jihad, they are at a higher rank. وَكُلًّا وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الْحُسْنَى. But all believers, Allah has given them a generous and a good promise. And so we shouldn't separate and then look down on any of our fellow believers, but we should try to be among al-mujahideen. And this verse again is universal. It doesn't pertain to the time when there is a battle. There's always a battle, and that battle is between the party of shaitan and the party of Allah. And we are all on that battlefield. Either we are on the side of Allah or we are on the side of shaitan. And if we are on the side of Allah, either we are among al-qa'idun or we are among al-mujahidun. And our aim is to be on the side of Allah and to be among al-mujahidun, who have that close connection and receive that special guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One final hadith, this is from our sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu was-salam. The Imam says there are three people who have a dua that will be answered. One of those people is somebody who goes for Hajj. So show honor to people who have gone for Hajj. If you can help them look after their house, their family, or their affairs, their business, because their du'as will be answered. One is somebody who is sick. When a person is sick, then Allah looks with special mercy on their du'as. So don't provoke and don't anger somebody who is sick. We talked about sickness some weeks ago. And the third group the Imam mentions is somebody who is al-ghazi, who is doing jihad in particular on the battlefield. And so you should consider their sacrifice and their struggle to be something that is important to you, and pray for them and try to make their life easier by helping their family, by helping those dependents of theirs who may not have their father or their husband or their person present for them. So according to hadith, jihad is one of those things that brings a special grace of Allah and mercy of Allah and fulfillment of prayers. This hadith is particular to those who are in a military battle for defense of Islam, but that principle applies in general to all forms of jihad. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among al-mujahideen fi sabilillah bil amwal wal anfus, with our possessions and with ourselves. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provide us the hidayah and the guidance which has been promised to the mujahideen. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar. Fasalli li rabbika wanhar. Inna shani'aka huwa al-abtar. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى علي أمير المؤمنين وعلى فاطمة الزهراء وعلى الحسن والحسين وعلي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والحجة بن الحسن القائم المهدي صلوات الله عليهم أجمعين. صلوات. I seek forgiveness from Allah for myself and for all of us present and for all mu'mineen. May Allah accept our ibadat and our worship and grant us tawfiq to obey Him and to follow in the footsteps of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad alayhimus salatu wassalam. After the days of Ashura, it's common for many people to kind of go back to their normal lives. It's very common for attendance at majalis and masajid to go down, and for that emotion and passion that we have during the first 10 days of Muharram to become more reduced and just as we normally live our lives. But let us always remember that the message of Karbala reached us through those who carried it after Ashura. And so just as Muharram is about the jihad of Imam Hussein, Ashura and Karbala is about the jihad of Imam Zain al-Abidin, the jihad of Sayyida Zainab salamullahi alayha. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And when one type of remembrance ends, then we have to take our inspiration from Imam Zain al-Abidin, from Sayyida Zainab, and we have to make sure that we are now carriers of the message of Karbala, to live our lives with a commitment to those values and to serve those values and to spread those values with all of the abilities that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us and put at our disposal. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us not to forget Karbala and not to reduce Karbala just to a ritual or a memory, but to be something that we live and that we are inspired by and that we continue to keep alive in our hearts and in our lives throughout our actions and our responsibilities in every area of our life. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Inna Allaha ya'muru bil adli wal ihsani wa ita'i dhil qurba wa yanha 'anil fahsha'i wal munkari wal baghi ya'idhukum la'allakum tadhakkarun. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Salatul Jumu'ah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين وآخرين منهم لما يلحقوا بهم وهو العزيز الحكيم ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم مثل الذين حملوا التوراة ثم لم يحملوها كمثل الحمار يحمل أسفارا بئس مثل القوم الذين كذبوا بآيات الله والله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين قل يا أيها الذين هادوا إن زعمتم أنكم أولياء لله من دون الناس فتمنوا الموت إن كنتم صادقين ولا يتمنونه أبدا بما قدمت أيديهم والله عليم بالظالمين قل إن الموت الذي تفرون منه فإنه ملاقيكم ثم تردون إلى عالم الغيب والشهادة فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون فإذا قضيت الصلاة فانتشروا في الأرض وابتغوا من فضل الله واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون وإذا رأوا تجارة أو لهوا انفضوا إليها وتركوك قائما قل ما عند الله خير من اللهو ومن التجارة والله خير الرازقين الله أكبر اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر بحول الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد فذلك الله ربنا الله أكبر اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا ذا الجلال والإكرام، يا ذا النعماء والجود، يا ذا المن والطول، حرم شيبتي على النار. إلهي هذه صلاتي صليتها لا لحاجة منك عليها ولا رغبة منك فيها إلا تعظيما وطاعة وإجابة لك إلى ما أمرتني به. إلهي إن كان فيها خلل أو نقص من نيتها وقيامها وقراءتها وركوعها أو سجودها فلا تواخذني، وتفضل علي بالقبول والغفران برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على محمد.
صلاة العصر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن عليا ولي الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. حي على خير العمل. حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة. قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر.
سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد.
الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر.
سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد.
الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر.
سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد.
سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر.
سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد.
الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر.
سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد.
الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر.
سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد.
سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر.
سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد.
الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر.
سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد.
الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد.
سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر.
سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد.
الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر.
سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد.
الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. تسبيحات الزهراء.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم إن مغفرتك أرجى من عملي وإن رحمتك أوسع من ذنبي اللهم إن كان ذنبي عندك عظيما فعفوك أعظم من ذنبي اللهم إن لم أكن أهلا نبلغ رحمتك فرحمتك أهل أن تبلغني وتسعني لأنها وسعت كل شيء برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام على علي أمير المؤمنين، السلام على فاطمة الزهراء، السلام على الحسن والحسين، السلام على الأئمة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين، السلام عليكم جميعا أهل بيت النبوة ورحمة الله وبركاته.